Hello and welcome back. And here we go, looking forward. Week 11. I think of this as a kind of a bridge week. Because with this week, we come to the end of our time with Let Your Life Speak. I hope you have been both challenged and encouraged by this text. As I told you at the beginning, when we first started reading and thinking together about this book has been incredibly vital in my own growth and development understanding, as has most of Parker Palmer's work. Transformational for me, I hope, in some sense, in some ways, it has been for you. I would encourage you to hang on to this text. You may want to revisit it sometime. I've read it many times over many years, and each time I found some new insight and some new understanding that was very helpful to me. If you don't like him, well, I'm sorry. That's always a risk you take when choosing a text. But I still committed and convinced that this was a good process, and I think for the most part, you will probably agree, although I have yet to see your work on this text. In the final chapters, Palmer focuses on two key themes: leadership and wholeness. In chapter 5, it's titled Leading from Within, and he takes the work that we've been doing, the reading, and begins to apply it to the role of leadership, which is in this course for the seminary, orientation and ministerial formation is an important focus. And then in the 6th, I'll say more about this in a second, it's titled There is a Season, and he helps us do some serious thought about wholeness. I think these two themes form a kind of bridge from the first weeks to the last weeks and remind us that this formational journey is never private, intensely personal, of course, but always relational. Chapter 5, to say a little bit more, after the darkness of chapter 4, when Palmer writes of his depression and his own journey into and out of depression, he takes us, as it were, to leadership. And we're reminded that we are called to something. We're called to leadership. You're in a seminary. So the assumption is you are pursuing a vocation, a ministry, maybe in the traditional classical sense of pastoral ministry, but also possibly in some wider variety of ministry in the world, of which there are many, and the many are much needed. So we're reminded that we are called out of the shadows. We're not to stay there and into leadership, but a particular kind of leadership, to a leadership within a kind of community. That's where the theme of wholeness comes in. But before you read and work with the prompts for chapter 5, I invite you to watch a 5-minute video to remind us of where we started. Watch Palmer's 5-minute video called What is the Divided Life? This is classic Palmer and takes us back to the beginning of the course and leads us to the end of the course. You can find the video on the URL on Canvas. The title of the video is What is the Divided Life? Second, chapter 6, using the old and familiar metaphor of 4 seasons, Palmer invites us into the notion that wholeness is not achieved at once. And in some respects, I might go so far as to say wholeness in the full sense is never achieved this side of heaven. It is seasonal, and it is difficult, and it is never ending, and it is joyful and rewarding. That is, I think, most importantly, it's not static and not always progress in the sense that we are continually getting better. It is possible, he reminds us, that in the midst of spring, we may find ourselves sweating in the heat of summer or freezing in the cold of winter. Yet he affirms that all seasons are essential to achieving wholeness. In important ways, these chapters are building bridges to what comes next in our study of formation. And that is to the role of leadership and formation in the life of community. Beginning next week, we turn our attention to formation of life in the church, the formation of the life of the church, the formation of persons in the life of the church, and begin to think together about spiritual formation in the context of congregational life. Still seeking answers to the question of congruence, we now broaden our exploration, but I'm getting ahead of myself. More about that next week. After watching the brief video, read the chapters and complete your journal reflections based on the prompts. You'll also find another assessment, another tool titled My Journey in Love that invites us, you, to find some closure over the first part of this journey as we cross a bridge, a metaphorical bridge, so to speak, into the larger context of community life. Think of it as a breathing space to stop, look back, reflect on where you have been, and then, looking forward, perhaps with some new energy, taking the next step, the next first step on the journey. Again, I continue to pray for you, helping and hoping that all is good for you in this time in your life. God bless you.